Welcome to the Total Boss Podcast, and I'm your host, Cristiano Green, a podcast where we talk about finding fulfillment through self-development, being a leader of your own life, and getting the most out of it as well. Tenacity, originality, talent, authenticity, and being legendary. It's all about living your best life. Hello, all you total bosses out there, and welcome to the Total Boss Podcast. Now, I'm your host, Cristiano Green, and I am a life and business coach for gay men and women. So this week's topic I'm going to talk about is a little bit about my own journey with alcohol and then into my sobriety. So me growing up, when I was younger, I kind of started drinking quite late, really. Like when I started to properly drink, I was probably 21. But before that, really, I think what really put me off was I was working at Burger King before, and, you know, we had a Christmas party, and going there, I was probably like 15 years old, and everyone there was going to be drinking. So one of the older people who were working there decided to, was buying alcohol for the younger people. And so I got a bottle of Jim Beam, which is like bourbon. And, you know, because I didn't really know much about it, I was going to the party and, you know, wanted to try to fit in and kind of, you know, fit in because I didn't really have any friends outside of work, and they'd invited me to the Christmas party. So I thought if I go there, maybe I'll, you know, have a few drinks and see what it does for me. Before, I hadn't really drunk or really noticed what it was like. So I thought maybe, you know, I'll go with the flow. Well, that led me down a path because I was probably, 60 kilos back then, never drunk before. And I kind of drank the whole bottle, and I was profusely sick. I had to get my mum to come and pick me up. And then the next day I went to work, and I was throwing up at work, and they sent me home. So I got in big trouble from both my parents and at work because I wasn't able to complete my shift. So that kind of put me off drinking for quite some time. And then, you know, when I finished school, because I didn't really have any friends, I didn't go out drinking, didn't go to any parties. So I didn't start drinking really until I was 21, and really when I went to my first gay club, because when I started going to the gay club and meeting people coming out, you know, I started drinking because I was in, you know, the club party scene, and that's really where it started for me. So because, you know, my whole kind of experience with drinking was around bars, clubs, socializing, you know, I used to probably started drinking. I went from zero to kind of drinking once a week, twice a week, 3 times a week, 4 times a week, 5 times a week, you know, because I was going out all the time, you know, trying to socialize, get to meet people, because before that I had 0 friends. And so really when it started, like, you know, I just kind of was keeping up with the people that I was drinking with. And a lot of those people would drink a lot, and, you know, some people would get absolutely wasted. So, you know, that's kind of what I started doing as well, because it just seemed normal. So, you know, for me, for the first, you know, 4 or 5 years, I think I would probably get blackout drunk at least once a week, probably twice. And when I say blackout drunk, I get to the point where I don't remember a portion of the night. I don't remember getting home. And yeah, I would have drunken to the point where, like, I guess how it works is your blood sugars or blood levels change with the alcohol, and then you just kind of black out. And, you know, from what I've heard is I'd been out for hours, sometimes, you know, 10 hours afterwards, continuing drinking, and I have absolutely no recollection of it. And I always found that to be really quite strange for me, because in general, I have like a photographic memory. I mean, I can remember everything that goes on when I'm sober. So when I was drunk, for me to black out, it was clearly quite strange. So either way, you know, because I was around people, it was normal. That's what I thought was normal as well. And I never really thought there was a problem to it. So, you know, I would be drinking, you know, like I said, 3, 4, 5, sometimes 6, 7 times a week, depending on the week. And like I said, I never really thought of it being a problem, you know. It really only started getting to a problem probably when I got to my mid-20s, when, you know, I'd realized that, you know, if I started drinking and, you know, I was in a bad mood, I would get angry and sometimes, you know, verbally aggressive at people and abuse people and say things that, just didn't sound like what I would do normally. And so when people would tell me about those things later, I would always think, fuck, like, that's not me. Like, I wouldn't do that. Like, maybe you were drunk too. Like, maybe, like, what did that person do to bring that on? And so I would always kind of still play it off as if, like, I hadn't done anything wrong, or it wasn't me. And, it was easy to apologize because, that had happened to a lot of my friends. Someone would get drunk, someone would have a go, someone would have a cry, someone would have a shenanigans. And we would just forgive and move on because that was kind of just the way it went when you were younger. It was only, I guess, when it got to, when I was becoming, 27, 28, 29, when, some of those things that you continue to do, you can only say sorry so many times. So there was a lot of times where, some of my friendships were definitely strained because of the way I would handle it. But I still didn't want to accept that I had a problem at that time. So I would still, let it go or try to ignore it and then just move on. And knowing that I would be filled up with anxiety still, I would keep that to myself because, again, I still wanted to be part of that world, part of that. I needed to fit in. And I felt like that was the only way that was going to happen, It was really only when I got to probably 29 or 30 when I really first started about wanting to give up drinking. Because I kept waking up with anxiety. Every time I'd have a blackout night, I would go, oh my God, what have I done? What have I said? Who do I need to apologize to? And it would give me literally a lot of anxiety. And then, there were times where I'd done this or I'd done that and you hear about it and you just can't, like I said, there's only so many times you can say sorry without it actually getting to a point where you're just like, why do I keep doing this to myself? So, that really never stopped me drinking, and I got myself into so many very scary situations. I remember just being sometimes where I've been overseas completely on my own, absolutely wasted, and have no idea how I got home or what had happened. There were so many times when I would be out that I would lose my phone, I'd lose my wallet. I'd lost my wallet overseas a few times when I'd been on holiday, had to figure it out with the person I was working with, transfer the money, and it was really awful. Like, I'd lost so many things and wasted so much money and time because, like I said, if you don't remember what's going on, like, why am I wasting my life feeling like I'm enjoying myself because of this? But again, I was in such a cycle. I would try to stop drinking for, a week or 2 weeks. And ultimately, as soon as the opportunity came up and I was feeling, better again from the anxiety, I'd say, oh, why not? Look, it'll be okay. I'll just only have a couple of drinks a night. I just could never, ever, ever only have a couple of drinks. And so every time I would do that, again, it would just get to a point. There were plenty of times, let me tell you this, that I really had great time on it. And it didn't always get to that blackout stage. But when you're getting blackout drunk, maybe once a week or once a fortnight or sometimes once a month, depending on how I was going, it still caused so much internal chaos for me because of that anxiety. And that was the thing that was the hardest for me to kind of deal with, because every time I would feel that way, it would really feel really low. And I know that I would withdraw to myself, especially when I started to live on my own. If I'd had a big night where I was drinking and I had a blackout night, I would get so riddled with anxiety. And, maybe this was a Friday night and the next day, Saturday, that I had so much anxiety that I knew the only thing that was going to help me to get rid of the anxiety was to have another drink. So I'd be going to the bottle shop sometimes at 11 o'clock on a Saturday to get some wine or get something else to drink so that I could take that edge off, because I just couldn't handle feeling that anxiety. It was really overtaking. It would override my whole body and I just couldn't function. So that would be the case. I would sometimes drink that away and then try to have an early night on the Saturday night so that on Sunday I'm a bit more fresher. But sometimes, again, I would drink so much that it would lead into Sunday and I'd feel depressed again, because obviously alcohol is a depressant, and the more you drink, the more you feel depressed. So it then just leads to continual kind of down spiral. So that would happen, and sometimes I would then end up drinking the whole weekend. And that's just not good. Sometimes it would just be like, I'd have a couple of bottles of wine and that was it. But then there'd be times where, like, for example, if I decided to buy a bottle of vodka or a bottle of whiskey or something, I would get to the point where I would be blackout drunk, and sometimes I would lose a whole day. And I wouldn't even realize that it was the next day until, I'm looking at something online and I just can't remember. And it's not fun to get in a place where you're in a spiral of alcohol and drinking, and you drink for 2 or 3 or 4 days, Sometimes I was in a high pressured job as well. And there were some times where it was Monday and I had to call in sick because I was still drunk and I just didn't want to stop. And, that would be something that, I was so ashamed of, and I would never want to tell anybody about this because, who wants to go and say to someone that you've been drinking for 3 or 4 days and you haven't stopped? It just sounds really bad, and it's a very shameful thing. So I always carried a lot of shame, and then that shame would lead to me needing to have a drink to get rid of the shame. So all of these things led to, a lot of anxiety that I had built up from it. So it took me a long time to really realize that I had a problem. There was also times when I would go to the Philippines and that same thing would happen, that I would have gone after work on a Friday. I would maybe go out for drinks with my team. And, I would get absolutely wasted again. They would end up having to take me home from where we were and make sure I got to my room. And as soon as I'd get home, I would order some more drinks from room service, because no matter what time it was, the room service was open 24 hours a day. So I'd sometimes be up drinking, or I'd even have alcohol in the room. Sometimes I'd buy some alcohol duty free or whatever, or get it before I left Australia, or even, at the shops. And then I'd be drinking again from Friday night all the way through till end of Sunday. And then I'd come back into the office on Monday acting like nothing had ever happened, just pretending that I had to put on a strong, solid face. But really, I'd just been abusing myself the whole weekend. And it's not good. It's not good to be able to do that and to feel like you're out of control. And that was the level of alcohol addiction that I had. It was binge drinking. And, those trips to the Philippines, although, I really appreciated going there and spending time with the team, there were really a lot of stress. And I know I always had to kind of, entertain the team, because they wanted to do things with me every time, and it would always lead to drinking. And so sometimes I would be drinking from the time I got to the airport to fly there, drink all the way on the plane. And then, I'd be drinking every single day because, I knew what I was coming for, and I just wanted to relax beforehand. And I'd use that as an excuse to drink on the plane. And I'd get like I said, I would spend pretty much a whole day drinking, because I'd get to the airport probably 10 o'clock, check in, get through, go and have a drink while I'm waiting for the plane. And sometimes then, like I said, I'd get on the plane and I'd drink pretty much the whole way through, and then get off, and I'd get to the airport to my hotel about 6 o'clock, and then I'd have dinner and more drinks. And that would be the first day of my trip. And then I might be there for 10 days, and I drink, every evening with the team or on my own, because if I go out to dinner, I'm out at a restaurant on my own, so I needed to have some drinks, and that's what I would do. And then, like I said, on the weekend, there'd be times where I would just get absolutely wasted the whole weekend. And, it got to a point where it was just way, way, way too much. And, there's only so much that you can do before you really have to say to yourself, when is enough going to be enough? And, there'd been many times where, like I said, I'd had so many problems with people where I'd have fights, and sometimes, I lost some friendships really because of the drinking and how I acted or how I treated people. And, I was too proud to apologize to those people at the time, because I just thought like, well, that wasn't me, you know who I am, so why do I need to keep apologizing for things? Or I would apologize, but then the actions would still be there. So it really took a toll on me. And like I said, probably I was drinking since I was 21 till I was 34, so about 13 years. And I would say for most of that time there was a problem, but I realized there was a true problem probably for about 10 years. So for someone who had been drinking heavily for so many years to have such a problem, I even tried to stop. One time when I went to Peru, I did an ayahuasca retreat. I was there for 2 weeks. And one of the main reasons I went there was because I really wanted to get help here. And I was like, I can't do this on my own. I need something. I'd researched. I'd heard that so many people had gone there with addictions and been able to solve them. And so I went there, and it actually really, really, really helped clear out so much stuff from me, to the fact that I was able to come back to Australia, and I gave up drinking at that point for 100 days. And I was planning to give up for good at that point. But, that first time I came back, I went to a wedding and everyone was drinking, everyone was having a great time. And I just got caught up in the moment, and I decided to say, well, look, I'll just drink this one time and get back to it. But that time I relapsed it just didn't stop there. I felt like I'd failed, and then I couldn't go back at that point. So it just went back into the same old spirals. And then that was 2018. And, I went back in the same spiral for another 2 years. And, it got the worst it got for me was when we were in COVID and I couldn't go anywhere. And so all I would do was drink, and I was drinking almost every single day and all weekend. And I started buying cask wine so that I, could just have a couple of drinks on the weekend. But I'd start drinking at Friday drinks, because we would do Zoom calls at 4:00 on a Friday, and then I wouldn't stop again until Sunday night. And that would be my weekend. And, that was just awful. I was so depressed, anxiety. I had so much stress at that point as well because work was going crazy that I just was like, I couldn't cope with it. And it got to a point where I was crying one weekend saying, I just can't do this anymore. And, I remember the last time I went to have a drink, and I didn't realize at that time that it was going to be my last drink. I was out with some friends. It was a Thursday night, and we had just gone out for dinner. So we were at this place, we were having cocktails and wine and stuff like that. I didn't get absolutely wasted, but I got to a point where I was just like, I came home and I was doing a, 3-day coaching boot camp. And, I've been really wanting to start my own business. I've been really trying to get it off the ground for a little bit. But when I went to this thing, I had a lot of revelations. I realized that this is something that I needed to work on. I needed some help. And I actually signed up and got into a mastermind with my current coaches. And it was a big investment. It was, $30,000 for, the course and the help and all the guidance. And it came with a lot of stuff that it was going to be super helpful, and it has been. And as soon as I made that investment, I said to myself, you know what, this has been a problem for me. I need to, if I'm going to take this seriously and really help other people, especially when I want to help people with, addiction issues, I need to sort my shit out. And I made a promise to myself at that point that I would give up drinking. And, like I said, I didn't realize when I had that drink on the Thursday night before that I was going to be my last. But I said to myself, look, why do you need a celebratory last drink if this is something you don't want to do? So I gave up and I just threw myself into, working on myself. Like I said, I really went hard on my business because I knew that was what I needed to do to get out of, the job that I was in. I mean, as much as I loved my team, I just didn't love the job, and I felt like I was stuck there and I had to work on a lot of stuff. So I did a lot of work. I was doing so many personal development courses. I just threw myself into whatever I could do, and I wanted to grow. And I threw myself into my fitness. I threw myself into my sobriety. I threw myself into my business, and I threw myself into really, truly putting in the work so that I could become the coach that I wanted to be. I could become the person that I wanted to be. I could work on myself so I could finally build and get a relationship that I want to have. So that's one of the things that I'm wanting to work on. And I knew that the drinking was something that had affected me getting into relationships before, because, before the age of 34, I never ever had an intimate relationship or, sex with anyone without being wasted. And I said to myself, at 34 years of age, if you've never been able to do that, this is something you need to sort out. And so, I've had to work on that and connect to people and, try on many different experiences sexually and, trying to work on relationships. And doing it sober had been such a rewarding experience because I finally got to figure out who I was and what I liked, and then got to experiment on that. And I felt like I was a teenager again at some points, really, doing some of those things for the very first time, because my very first time, I don't even really truly remember the whole experience. So being able to do it for the first time didn't feel like I'd lost my virginity, of course, but it felt like I was finally understanding more about myself and my body. And so to be able to give myself these gifts is something that I can truly say that I'm honored and cherished to do. So, that time was just over a year ago. July 17th, 2020 was the very last time I had a drink. And for me, it's been just over a year now. And, the lessons that I've learned over that period were that, I was feeling so much pain, and I had so much low self-worth and so much low confidence that it held me back from really truly being who I truly am inside. And now that I've been able to work on that and actually heal myself from the past traumas, I've been able to realize that there's so much more out there for me than drinking. And I can't say that I'll never have a drink again because I just don't know the future. But I feel like right now I don't have any attachment to it. It doesn't hold me down. I can go out and be with people who are drinking and have a good time still. There's a point in the night where I would go home before everyone gets absolutely wasted, because it's not fun to be the sober person when everyone's drunk. But, that's cool. I can enjoy myself and then go home and still enjoy my life. So it's been a blessing. I've noticed so much more things with my health. I was able to lose 10 kilos of body fat. I went from like 23% body fat down to 10% body fat. Now I've been able to work on growing muscle and get better sleep and just really have more focus and determination to be able to serve and write my book, start my podcast, do all these things that I'd wanted to do, but the drinking was holding me back. So for anyone out there who's been struggling with drinking or any other addiction, I totally get it. I understand how hard it is. My problem lasted for well over 10 years. And so there is a time where you can make that step to shift if you really want to. It does take hard work. It's not easy. You have to make sacrifices. When I first started, I decided that I wanted to go to AA. They had them online because it was during COVID, and I was going once a week to a meeting because I felt like if I can check in, hold myself accountable, then this will be good for me. And I didn't know what I was going to expect from it. I went to a gay AA. There's a gay AA website that has meetings on. And it was comfortable because a lot of people who were sharing, I could relate to their stories. And then I felt like when I shared, people related to my stories. So there's definitely places out there that can help you. For sure. And when I went to my first gay AA meeting, there was a person who was offering to be a sponsor. I decided that I would message him and figure it out. And he was my sponsor for, the first 100 days of my sobriety. After that, it wasn't really the right fit for both of us. So I decided to stop, and I felt like I didn't need that anymore. And that's not necessary to say the path of AA and sponsorship aren't bad. It's just that, I felt strong enough in my own convictions that I needed to do this on my own as well. So I had some help to start with. I got the support I needed, but then I was able to focus and say, this is the path that I want to take. So I just want to say to anyone out there who is struggling or has struggled, I'd love to hear about your experiences. I'd love to talk to you. I'd love to try to help you. You can find me again by commenting in the comments on whatever platform you're listening to this on, or you can find me on social media, on Instagram, on Facebook, under Cristiano Green. And, feel free to share your experience with me. Tell me a little bit about what's happened to you, because I love hearing about people's journeys, and I love to see if I can support people on that journey. Well, thank you very much for listening today. I really appreciate everyone. As always, I'd love to hear your comments, so feel free to share below or contact me on those platforms. But for now, always remember that you've got this and I've got you. Have a good one. Thank you. Bye.